It's my song! Let's sing it! It's gonna be freaking awesome! Come on! It's gonna be freaking awesome! You know the words! It's gonna be freaking awesome! That's it! Say! It's gonna be freaking awesome! Yeah!
It's gonna be freaking awesome, everybody, because we're back with another awesome episode of the Coolest Geek Alive, and I am indeed going to count down the remaining 25 greatest classic geek culture films of all time today on the show. But first, I want to talk about the fact that Spider-Verse is back at the top of the box office in week 3 of its release. After falling to number 3 last week, it's come back to number 1, and that is unheard of. So, in other news, fans still not racist. Elementals came in second place at the box office. Elemental, which is the biggest flop Pixar has ever had. Analysts estimate Disney lost $890 million on their last 8 theatrical releases. The mainstream media is finally starting to pick up on the underground media that I follow. This was actually originally reported by Valiant Renegade, who's one of the people who I pay attention to get my information from as far as box office is concerned. Very accurate information. He's been talking about all these mistakes that Disney's been making. Many of the things that I've shared with you are little pieces of information that I've got by listening to people like him. Not just him, but him as well. Check out Valiant Renegade on YouTube. Shout out to Valiant. I don't know him personally, but I love him and I love his channel. All right. Spider-Verse 2 made $19.3 million in its third week to top the box office, bringing its total haul to $317 million domestically and $560 million worldwide. The original Spider-Verse, that film only made $384 million worldwide. $384 million worldwide. And it's already made $317 domestically, Spider-Verse 2. This should easily double its predecessor. So tell me again how racist and sexist the people of planet Earth are, let alone the geeks. The Into the Spider-Verse franchise, now that it is led by a black Hispanic teenager lead and a female co-star lead in Gwen Stacy, who is a feminist freedom fighter. These are all supposed to be all these things that we automatically reject. Nobody automatically rejects anything. It's you, Hollywood, who are racist and sexist and phobic. You think that everybody is this cookie cutter thing where we automatically go, nah, I don't like women. No, but it's because not enough time is taken to develop the character. But characters like Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley, we never had any problems with them. Everyone is having a hard time in this world. And we are looking to see and relate to people on screen who are struggling in, maybe some way that we're struggling, but they don't have to be. It's better, actually, I think, when they're struggling in ways that we can't even begin to dream how bad they're struggling. And that's the relationship that we have with these film characters. It's their struggle. And when you put a girl on the page of your script, and she's this powerful girl boss who just always gets it right, and she was right all along, and everything's always working out for her, and everybody likes her, and why wouldn't they? You're doing your character and the actors that play them a disservice, because the audience needs to empathize with their struggle. That's just it. There's a great book that I would recommend to any of the aspiring writers out there, and I'll make this the recommendation for the show. If you're listening to my show, it's probably because you're really interested in this stuff on a deep level. And if you are, Wired for Story, I believe it's called. I don't remember what the author's name is. It's a book on writing novels, but the concept behind the book is singular and uniform, and it's what a reader or viewer's experience actually is when they are experiencing media of any kind. And I'm telling you this, it's not them hanging on every piece of your snappy dialogue and the handsome people. It's the struggle. It's that there's something that they want, they need, and they are taking steps to get it, but they're being foiled in various ways. Your villain is just their inability to get anything that they want. And if they want it bad enough, if they deserve it bad enough, you're going to love it. I had a really good friend of mine who gave me a script the other day, and it was filled with women in a band, and they going to be rock stars. It's this 80s period piece, girl power thing. It's really sweet, but people would hate it. And I gave her a lot of notes very diplomatically and sweetly, trying to explain to her that the movie is just sort of like these girls being handed everything they've ever wanted on a silver platter without much struggle, without it even necessarily being set up why they need that particular thing and that particular life. And nothing is earned, so you don't hooray, and everything seems really convenient. Your audience will feel like something is convenient if it's unearned. If something is earned, your audience will say, thank God in heaven that that's how it worked out, because if it didn't work out like that, I would have left this theater depressed for the rest of my life. That's how you have to make an audience feel, because they need the thing so much that when something contrived happens, the audience goes with it. But if that isn't set up like that, and you make a contrivance, a duox machine, I was mispronounced this word. Somebody tell me, write me a letter at jesseblaze@jessesnider.com and tell me, how do you pronounce duex machina? Duex machina? I'm not sure. If you need this quick fix that comes from nowhere, the hand of God stepping in, you must make the struggle real, because the struggle is ultimately the only thing that we are really caring about. You might get somebody into a movie theater with an actor that they like, or a handsome face or whatever, and this is why some TV shows with terrible actors but they look handsome or whatever and has a good hook will go on for forever, because that's enough. We got them in because they liked him, and then here we go. They've got a struggle. They've got something they need, and they're never going to get it until ultimately season 7 of this series. They'll get the thing finally. But it's the struggle. The struggle is everything. It's not about you. It's about the human experience and people wanting to live vicariously through others, especially when they're experiencing difficult circumstances that they might have to overcome, or that they can vicariously overcome with them to feel strong and brave alongside them. The truth of the matter is, planet Earth, we are not inherently sexist, racist, any kind of is you can think of. We are biased. That's the truth of the matter. Planet Earth is biased. We have biases, but that doesn't mean you can't win us over. And that is what art is here to do. It's here to give us entry-level perspectives on people that don't look like us so that we can better relate to each other. Case in point, anthropomorphizing animals, meaning giving them human characteristics, making them talk, etc., like you'd see in your average Disney animated film, helps us to identify and empathize with their plight. And along the way, it generally teaches us to empathize as well with human beings, even though we're not seeing human beings interacting with each other, we're seeing animals. The point is, being biased is not the same as being racist and sexist, and it's really not fair, and it's this snap judgment of just the whole world, of even Republicans or whoever it is. Most people are very nuanced, and yeah, there's some people who are cookie cutter people and whatnot, but you'll really be surprised when faced with so much information, the people that you get. And I think most people who are listening go, well, I find myself sort of surprising in this way or that way, and I find that people are surprised about me. And yeah, you're a unique snowflake, and so is everybody. And I know people say that that's not true, but most of the time, a lot of the unique snowflakes, they just haven't had a chance to snowflake. They're kind of in a rut, and they're scared, and they're meek, and they don't really know how to express themselves, and they're blocked in some of those ways. But that doesn't mean that they're not unique people who have something to offer. And I really believe that we're all just coming from the same place, and we are biased. Start trying to forgive everybody and try to give the benefit of the doubt and think that everybody probably thinks they have a good reason for doing whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's going to see a movie or not going to see a movie. And it doesn't have to be racism and sexism, as Spider-Verse 2 proves for once and all time. Thank you very much. And to just double down for those people out there like me who love information, this film's making history. It's currently at number 16 on the highest grossing animated films of all time, beating up by $25 million and nipping at the heels of Shrek the Third and Minions, which it'll definitely beat. It's number 89 highest grossing film of all time. All of this not accounting for inflation, of course. But it'll take a little less than 300 million more to dethrone the number one animated movie of all time, The Fantastic Four 2. No, I'm just kidding. It's The Incredibles 2. If you don't know, The Incredibles is very much a send-up to The Fantastic Four, which is one of the greatest comic books of all time that's introduced some of the greatest villains of all time, and Marvel has the rights to these characters, and finally we're probably going to be getting some announcements about Fantastic Four soon. Oh, dear Lord, Lord of Geek Culture, please don't let Marvel fuck up the Fantastic Four franchise. Do it justice. Do it justice. Amen. Okay. So if Spider-Verse 2 can keep its momentum, because this is only week 3, and add a little under at least 120, which seems at least reasonable to me, I think it might be able to do the 300 thing if it's got legs. Some of these movies do, and it's a decent one. So 120 million though, that alone, 120 million alone, and it will crack the top 5 animated features and top 30 highest grossing films of all time. Notation for you guys: adjusted for inflation, almost all modern movies bow to films like Sound of Music, Star Wars: A New Hope, and Gone with the Wind. The youngest film in the top 10 films, profits adjusted for inflation, is Titanic from 97. So the top 10, the youngest movie is 97, which means every movie up until now is lower than that. Spider-Verse is still doing great in comparison to these films. The real problem in Hollywood these days is they spend so much more than they ever have. They make more, but the profit margins is actually smaller than the profit margins were, I think, 20 years ago because of all of this inflated everything. And I'm going to do a video on it in the future. Anyway, Elemental made $18.46 million this weekend, $65 million total so far. This is the biggest Pixar flop of all time. And Elementals came in second when The Flash came out last week, and Elemental has beaten The Flash. The Flash is now in third place. It's completely tanking. It only made $15.2 million this week. But I've been thinking, The Flash kind of sucked. There's a couple things about it. I was checking out Spider-Man No Way Home and everything that was good about it, and I started to realize that Michael Keaton's inclusion in this film was like 100% member berries. For those of you who don't know what member berries are, or like who don't get that reference, South Park did a great episode where they had these grapes that had little faces, and they would just sort of make references to Star Wars and things that you'd like. And it'd be like, hey, remember the Millennium Falcon? Hey, remember Luke Skywalker? I remember. Oh, remember. And it's this notion of sort of just dangling things in your face to make you go, oh, it's that thing that I like, but without giving it any substance. And you know what? I've talked about this before. Super Mario Brothers, I think, has a little bit less substance than I would have loved it to have, even though it is a member berry fiasco. Like, just everything that you want to see for that franchise is there, but not having any substance is a real crime in itself as well. And granted, the things looking like the thing I like is better to me than it not looking like it and then getting to some bit of the story. Granted, if they nailed the story 100%, actually, that would probably be the best thing, but they never do. So I don't think that that's possible. So I'll just take it looking pretty damn good because I know they can achieve that. All right. Hollywood notations. Just make it look great, okay? You can do that much, please. Do that for me. And sorry, that noise was me knocking an action figure off of my desk because that's what I do. I've got the human fly sitting on my microphone. He's very funny. He's making me laugh. Anyway, I've been thinking about it, and Michael Keaton in particular, I just realized, what did that movie do for him? The Spider-Man No Way Home movie, I think, did a much better job with this. Gave Tobey Maguire a little bit of growth with the Green Goblin and brought his story places a lot by just kind of dialogue and whatnot, but really gave Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man growth. It was meaningful having them around. They affected the protagonist's journey. And would you say that Batman participated in the emotional growth? Was there anything? What did Batman do other than show up and quote lines from his previous appearances, which is the total member berries thing? Let's get nuts. Oh, I remember. In thinking about that, it's just been really bothering me just how damn good The Flash is, and what a disappointment this is, that this is my favorite character, and they made a movie of him, and this is what they made. And clearly, the audience has not found its way to it. I think it was really overhyped as being fabulous. I think people's expectations were really low, so, generally they liked it. And I'm not knocking anybody for liking it. I mostly liked it, too, because I wasn't expecting any of the things that I love about The Flash to be satisfied by it, so I was watching it for what it is. But still, watching it for what it is, I started to kind of rewrite it, because there was one change that I thought should have been made that would have been epic. And that is, if they wanted to do this loose adaptation of the taking Superman out of the prison from the Flashpoint miniseries that Jeff Johns had written, making it this girl, this was when they were trying to set up this universe, but what would have been a much better idea for the fans and something that we were asking for on some level, it should have been Nicolas Cage in that thing. It should have been, this is the Tim Burton universe. And the Tim Burton universe was supposed to continue with Nicolas Cage as Superman. And he's still alive. I don't understand why we got that weird-ass CGI vision of him in the portal. He's a living person. He's in movies all the time. And we've got a CGI, we got a wax sculpture, fucking Nicolas Cage for his appearance in The Flash. That seems so odd to me. I was like, it wasn't even him in person. But imagine it was. Imagine he flew out of that thing and the movie ended with Michael Keaton and Nicolas Cage teamed up to make a Justice League of their own. I mean, just as a great fucking ending to that franchise, to just be like, oh yeah, imagine. Wonderful. And then if you did it well enough, the fans would freaking demand you do something. And then you get an opportunity to do a movie that everybody would like, where you can cast actors from the period that would be expected to be alongside Nick Cage and Michael Keaton in an 80s, 90s franchise. Whatever. You could just nail something like that, because all the trappings of the source material are gone at that point. And that's a fucking great idea for you, DC. That's a great idea for you, Warner Brothers. This, hey, we'll make it a bunch of girls. Girl probably be like Charlie's Angels, but with superheroes. Everybody gonna love it. Everybody loves Charlie's Angels. Everybody loves superheroes. These are the decisions that creative people like me have to rage against. Okay. Anyway, that's my rewriting of The Flash. I'll leave it at that. Box office flops are set to continue this week. Indy 5 comes out, and it is looking bleak for Disney's bottom line. I really do not plan to see this movie. I feel as though somehow by the time Wednesday rolls around, I will have been sucked into a vortex and I will have seen it. But I'm hoping not, because I really don't want to see it, because I've heard so many terrible things about it. I have no interest in experiencing something that I'm not going to like. And in principle, I don't really like what I've heard about the Indiana Jones movie. But this episode isn't about Indiana Jones because we've got 25 of the 50 greatest classic films of all time, but I already did the first 25, which included the first 3 Indiana Jones films, the only Indiana Jones films. And as we see today on our list of these remaining 25, there's a number of franchises that are included here, but for most of them, not on the list are their sequels. And this is largely because it's hard to get the fans to come into agreement about certain things. There's some movies on the list here where their sequels, I think, deserve to be on the list, and I'll talk about them when I get there, but that the consensus isn't exactly there. And I've tried to put together this list as the consensus reality for geeks in general. What have we all generally decided we really love and appreciate? After this episode and the previous episode, you'll have all 52. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to read the first 25 for the people who missed the previous episode, so that you have that and the ones for this episode. And I want you, if you see that I'm glaringly missing something, and I am glaringly missing a lot of things because I realize there's a lot of classics, and this list is all at least 20-year-olds. I tried to put everything before 2000. There's 2 at the end of the list that are just a little bit past that. Oh, well, it's 1 now, but we'll get there later. I think it's important to sort of ground all of these things in, like, these are the ones that started it all. The Spider-Man franchise comes after this. Lord of the Rings comes after this. All of the things that we think of as the pillars of geek culture come after this period. These are the classics. The modern stuff need not be included, at least for now. One day maybe I'll make a list for the modern classics or whatever. But starting off our list, we had Jaws in 1975 from Steven Spielberg. 2, we had Monty Python and the Holy Grail in 1975. Then we had Star Wars in 1977, the original A New Hope. Superman from Richard Donner in 78 at number 4. Number 5, The Muppet Movie, 79. 6, we've got Alien, the original Alien from Ridley Scott, 79. 7, we've got Monty Python's Life of Brian, classic film. My comic book, King of Kings, is a send-up to The Life of Brian by Monty Python, and it is listed on Kickstarter right now. Just type in King of Kings #1 and sign up for notifications. This should be going live in about 2 weeks, or less than that now. Number 8, Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars in 1980. Number 9, The Evil Dead in 81. Number 10, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number 11, The Secret of NIMH in 82. Oh, wait a second. The Secret of NIMH. That's the first on our list today, and I'll keep it going in that order. Because some of them I had them in year order, and I took them out to put franchises together and some of these directors together and whatnot in the first episode. So I'll just keep reading through and listing. But The Secret of NIMH is the first one that I did not talk about last time. Secret of NIMH is an animated film, and it's basically a cool, like, kind of mystical science fiction movie about lab rats. And it is dark and beautiful. Just like beautifully animated. I can't recommend it enough. This one I'm excited to show my kids because it's made exactly for them. But it's really it's one of those movies that wasn't afraid to be scary. And it is scary, but it's just so powerful and so meaningful, and I think it's really movies like this, these powerful, scary movies, that shape your childhood. These films, there's others on this list as well that fit that description. They really stick with you as a kid, and something needs to. This is how we learn through all of these other vicarious experiences. Continuing in 82, we've got The Dark Crystal, which we talked about last time at number 12. Number 13, we've got The Thing, John Carpenter in 1982. We talked about that last time. Number 14, we've got Star Wars, The Return of the Jedi in 83, which we also talked about last time. But at number 15, we've got Ghostbusters in 84. Yeah, Ghostbusters in 84. People love Ghostbusters. Franchise now technically has 4 films in it. Really did enjoy the last one. I don't know if it'll end up on any classics lists anywhere, but it was satisfying. The second one, I'm actually a huge fan of. I love the second one. I would put the second one on like my personal list of geek culture films of all time, especially now because the perspective of the geek back then who had seen Ghostbusters and then saw Ghostbusters 2 and was a little let down. As somebody who doesn't have any perspective, if you haven't seen the 2 original Ghostbuster films, I go watch them both. But Ghostbusters #1, everybody agrees, what a real grounded mix of science fiction and humor. The humor is so powerful because the movie's grounded and they're afraid, and constantly the humor is breaking tension. This is one of the reasons why the recent Ghostbusters film where they gender swapped them all didn't work as well, because it wasn't grounded, it was slapstick. And slapstick's okay. I don't mind slapstick. I don't mind people trying to make me laugh. But Ghostbusters was special. It's really a special franchise, and it's special because of this groundedness mixed with this anarchist humor of Bill Murray and the grounded paranormal and science knowledge of Dan Aykroyd, who wrote the script, and this is a real passion for him. Ghostbusters is a classic for geeks because it's so well thought out and lovingly made by Aykroyd and company. Yeah, if you haven't seen Ghostbusters, you need to. Okay, coming in at number 16, we've got one of my personal favorites, Gremlins in 1984. I'm actually an even bigger fan. On my top 10 films of all time, Gremlins 2. I love Gremlins 2, but not everybody agrees. Some people, the smart ones, they know what I'm talking about. If you're out there and you know what I mean, Gremlins 2 is just hysterical. Irreverent humor, the likes of which you just don't know. If you like Deadpool, I think Deadpool has maybe possibly opened people's eyes to the real art of breaking the fourth wall in great ways, and Gremlins 2 breaks the fourth wall in great ways. I know that one's not on the list, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time. But universally beloved by all is Gremlins. And while the special effects makeup for Gizmo and the Gremlins isn't quite as good in the first one as it is in the second one, where they hired Rick Baker to come in to do the special effects, and he improved upon what was already there and made it even better. But Gremlins 1 is where it all begins, and it's just lovely, funny, scary, a little scary, but more really fun. And I just adore that movie. It's got a great, simple set of rules. Yeah, do they make sense? No, but it's just this simple mythology that creates a bit of a world. And I think that we sometimes forget how important simple ideas like this. Don't feed them after midnight. Don't get them wet. Keep them away from bright light, which is pretty universal one sometimes with vampires or whatever. But setting some boundaries and parameters for your monster, giving them some simple abilities and restraints that we can understand. The Gremlins is just such a fun idea to play with. And I'm so sad that they haven't done more with the concept until recently with the animated series. I don't really know if an animated series is what anybody was asking for. I certainly wasn't asking for an animated series, so I'm not really interested in watching it. I might eventually if I hear a lot of good things about it, but so far I haven't heard anything great about it. I would, however, love a sequel to the frickin' second Gremlins movie so badly. Seriously, if you haven't watched Gremlins 2, watch Gremlins 2. If you haven't watched Gremlins, watch Gremlins. Great movies. Okay, moving down the list. We got number 17, the Terminator franchise in 1984. Terminator, and then later, of course, we've got Terminator 2 in 91. And that's number 40 on the list. We'll get there in a second. So, but I'm going to go over both these movies right now. So Terminator, it's interesting. The original casting for Terminator was actually supposed to be, what's his name? Lance Hendrickson, the dude who plays Bishop in the Aliens franchise. He is a guy who would blend into a crowd, I guess you would say. And that was the idea behind the Terminator. It was this robot that was just designed to blend into the crowd. They ended up going for this giant muscle robot, which I think worked better as a bit of science fiction. And Terminator comes in this first film as a bad guy. We've come to recognize him, if you haven't seen the franchise, as a good guy, but he starts out here bad to the bone, and it is wonderful. We've got the introduction of Sarah Connor, and she just fucking is the best, the toughest. But here we have the creation of her, talking about building characters, and so an audience will accept their growth as a badass. She goes through hell in this first movie, and when we see her in the second movie, we get her as this boss bitch that we have come to know Linda Carter as. That is her name, right? Yeah, I think so. So anyway, Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 are a 1-2 punch from James Cameron. You've seen the Avatar films or anything else from him. He's brilliant. Down on this list as well as Aliens, plural. He came in after John Ridley established the franchise with Alien, and he did the sequel and continued the greatness of that thing. What would be better than an alien? A lot of them, baby. And maybe a queen. Oh, snap. The introduction of the Alien Queen. So great. We talked about Alien last time. If you haven't seen Aliens, the fans cannot agree about how we feel about everything after that. No, I think we generally can agree. None of them are as good as Alien and Aliens, but Alien and Aliens are good enough that they will establish that franchise for forever because it demonstrates what can be done with those characters. And there's some really, if you like Alien and Aliens, there's some amazing comic books that have been turned into graphic novels, collections, like miniseries that have been put out for Alien and Predator and some of these franchises. The Dark Horse had owned some of these things, but Alien versus Predator, Alien versus lots of superheroes, and some of the superhero ones were great. I really enjoyed the hell out of them. For people who want a little bit more from that universe and are willing to read a book, there's some stuff out there you can find. Continuing down the list, we've got at number 18, we've got Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in 1984. At number 19, we've got The Never-Ending Story. A personal favorite of mine, also a personal childhood nightmare of mine, The Nothing, which is basically the bad guy, and it's this oblivion that's just sucking away this beautiful universe of creativity in The Never-Ending Story. And if something isn't done by our protagonist, who is, well, there's kind of a twofold protagonist. There's a protagonist in the book, and then the reader becomes the protagonist who needs to do something to help with the never-ending story. I don't want to spoil everything, but it's very kind of sort of mystical and magical and fun, and it's just about a boy getting engrossed in reading. It's a beautiful film with great animatronics and colorful characters, all sorts of different races of beings and interesting concepts, and two scariest things in the world, The Nothing and this wolf that is following Atreyu. Oh my God, this wolf. The wolf in this damn movie scared me for so long. He's not a real wolf. He's like an animatronic talking wolf, but he basically just looks like a real wolf. But just to picture it, there's something just unnatural about it, and really, and the voice, anything like it's visceral. Nowadays, everything's CGI, and a lot of the effects. We were talking about the effects in The Flash being particularly weak. Especially knowing what can be done, having seen the height of special effects that can be done with CGI and, like, say, any of the Star Wars films that George Lucas had produced, or something like Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, or anything that has been done really well. There's plenty of things that have been done well enough that now when you see something that isn't done very well, and a lot of it isn't done very well to me, you just go, oh man, they cheaped out there. That could have been better. Like not enough love was put into that, and just so much love is put into The Never-Ending Story, and it's just largely all practical effects. It might be all practical effects, and I'm speaking out of turn, but it's certainly mostly practical effects and just beautiful things that human beings are interacting with, and that's
what we need in fantasy and science fiction. More of that. More of the creation of worlds and not just these digital masks of things. I know it's easy, Hollywood, but to actually bring something real into the world is so incredible. And I talked about in the near future, I'm going to do multiple episodes with my kids where I have them review these movies. I'm going to watch all these classic movies with them over the summer, and then I'm going to release them weekly of their reviews of the various films. And I'm so excited to show them all these practical effects. And I'm wondering if they're going to notice a big difference between how these movies look to how the movies that they watch look, and if they like how these look better. Because I think that they will. At number 20, we've got Richard Donner's Goonies. We talked about that one last time. That's in 1985. At number 21, we've got Sesame Street, Follow That Bird in 85. At number 22, we've got Back to the Future in 1985. I think generally the whole franchise is enjoyable. I remember not being thrilled with the third one. The first two I really liked. But generally speaking, I think all the geeks all around the world can agree Back to the Future, the very first film, is wonderful, brilliant. It's just such a great science fiction movie about a mad scientist and his friend. And ultimately, we've got Rick and Morty because of Back to the Future now. What a great legacy that is on top of everything else. At this point, you probably know from the title, but Michael J. Fox. Oh, gotta love Michael J. Fox. He goes back in time with this time machine made by Christopher Lloyd, and he interacts with his mom and his dad in high school, and it's all very cool. You got to check that one out. Continuing down the list, number 23, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And Pee-wee's Big Adventure is going to make me segue into two others. We're going to do Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Batman 89, and Beetlejuice. These three movies are greats for Tim Burton. Tim Burton can sometimes be a little hit and miss with his story stuff, but visually always really stimulating. These three movies sort of embody some of the best of what he did. Pee-wee's Big Adventure actually has a great cameo from my father, Mr. D. Snider. Shout out to you, Dad. And I didn't put this on the list because I'm biased or anything. All right, so get it straight. And you can catch him shooting a music video at the end of the film. So be on the lookout when you're watching that one. It's a great, funny, and one of those also kind of disturbing, scary movies, not afraid to be scary film that I remember so fondly from my childhood. It's really awesome on so many levels, and I just remember being fascinated by Pee Wee Herman and sort of the tone of Pee Wee's Big Adventure, and it definitely made me think. And any movie that'll make you think long and hard, that's a good geeky movie. And that's something that'll let you geek out to it. Beetlejuice, another great one with a supernatural bent. Michael Keaton kicking ass and taking names. This is just such a classic. And I don't know why it's like a geek culture one in particular. I think because it's got this theatrical, supernatural bend to it. There's a lot of practical effects and scariness that's in a world. And I think that's the big thing that we come to in geek culture is we love worlds. And Beetlejuice definitely creates a world. They made an animated series after it that I used to watch all the time when I was a kid. I loved that animated series. And they announced recently a sequel to Beetlejuice 2. And I'm stoked about that as well. Beetlejuice 2. I hope they do a great job with it because it would be great. That's like definitely a top 100 films of all time for myself, a personal favorite. Okay, continuing on, we've got Batman 89, and that one, I mean, this is the Batman that started it all. Granted, as a Batman fan, I don't think that movie really sells us on Batman. It gives us some of the action and the visuals of Batman. None of the Batman films have really gotten Bruce Wayne and Batman down so well. They've done the villains pretty good, and this one does kick off the villains and the aesthetic of Batman in wonderful ways. And in general, this is a film that has gotten many people into Batman comic books and has led many to learn that Batman is even better than these stupid movies are. But because of that, because of all the people who actually read comic books because of Tim Burton's Batman in 89, I would say it's got to be on the list of the top 50 of all time. Coming in at number number 24, we've got Legend in 85, directed by Ridley Scott. We talked about it last time. And at number 25, we've got Real Genius, starring Val Kilmer in 85. This is about this genius dude who's at an Ivy League school and being used by the government to make weapons. It's a comedy, coming-of-age movie, and it's great. That's all you need to know. Val Kilmer is Val Kilmer, the movie star that we know from any other movie that you might have seen him in, whether it's Mad Mardigan and Willow or as Ice in Top Gun and playing Jim Morrison in The Doors. Like, he became an icon on the back of films like this one, Real Genius, and another movie called Top Secret. This one, though, I really think is the best. Real Genius. Go check it out. All right, number 26, we've got Aliens in 86, which we talked about. At number 27, we got Little Shop of Horrors in 86. At number 28, we've got The Labyrinth, that was in 86, and Big Trouble in Little China at number 29, which is also 86. Okay, coming in at number 30 is one of my personal favorite films and my favorite book of all time, favorite film of all time. It's 1987's The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride, it's written by William Goldman. He's one of the greatest writers of all time. He's written tons of books on writing. There's tons of books on his screenplays. He's written Oscars. He won an Oscar for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He won an Oscar for adapting All the President's Men with Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford. Great movie. Really great adaptation as well. He's a man who knows how to adapt things, which is what we like to talk about here on the show. He's also responsible for the book Marathon Man and the movie Marathon Man. That was an original based on his original novel. So he was a novelist and a screenwriter, and he wrote a book, The Princess Bride, wrote for his daughters. One asked for a story about a princess, the other one asked for a story about a bride, so he wrote The Princess Bride. And it's so adult. It's not for little kids the way that you would imagine it based on him being asked by his children to do this book. There's so much more than that. The film does a great job adapting it and shorthanding it, but the book, which I've recommended before on the show, is just even deeper and better. And there's actually a new version that has an additional chapter basically dedicated to Andre the Giant's character, Fezzik, and Andre the Giant, because we lost him, unfortunately. And William Goldman had felt that. We lost William Goldman as well. William Goldman had felt the loss, and he added a chapter to the book to basically address the loss spiritually, as a writer. It's really sweet, really wonderful. Highly recommend that. Princess Bride, 1987. Number 31 on the list, we've got Evil Dead 2 in 87, which we spoke about. At number 32 in 87, we've got The Predator. This is my son Cassidy's favorite movie of all time. My son loves horror movies. I introduced him to monster movies pretty early because I think monster movies are kind of the easiest ones of these horror movies to kind of get around because the subject matter tends not to be so adult. So when I saw that he really liked that kind of stuff, I showed him The Predator, and he was just like, yes, this is amazing. And he loves those movies. He really enjoys, I think, all of them. But The Predator, the first one in particular, is just a favorite for him. So I won't be showing him anything new when I show them these movies, but I will be showing the rest of the kids this movie. And this is the one that started it all. I happen to really love Predator 2. I like The Predator so much that I'll rewatch those other ones sometimes, even though I was disappointed in all the other Predator movies that have been made. Even though I did kind of like the one with they were all on the bus. The names have been really subtle. It's not like Predator 3, 4, 5, so I'm forgetting which one it was. But it was with the dude who played the Punisher. Thomas Jane was he had like Tourette's or whatever. That one was kind of good, but I felt like they pulled the punch a little bit. And they did that movie Predators with Adrian Brody, but he was a little scrawny and kind of didn't really fit the part. Every one of these movies has just been a little bit lackluster in one way or another since the first one. Even though I do recommend the second one with Danny Glover, I think especially. I think the bar has gotten lower and lower, but that one holds up and is similar in its own ways to the first film, and I did enjoy that one a lot. But Predator #1 with Arnold Schwarzenegger, some great appearances by Shane Black, who's a screenwriter of the Lethal Weapon franchise and directed and wrote Iron Man 3, and he's a really great writer-director. Shane Black's somebody who's worth digging into some of his filmography. He's written some amazing things over the years that aren't necessarily in the geek culture genre, but he's awesome. Jesse Ventura and a ton of other people whose names are kind of escaping me at the moment. But yeah, I mean, it's just a star-studded action cast that is, sets the tone for all other sci-fi action films for all time. We've got Apollo Creed's in the movie. I forgot that damn actor's name. He's on Arrested Development now. I love that guy. Hey, but I can't remember actors' names off the top of my head. I love being able to be like, bah, 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 bah. It'll probably come to me at some point. Anyway, Carl Weathers. I told you it'd come to me. At number 33, we've got 87's RoboCop. And RoboCop is just such a bombastic comic book sort of concept. This police officer dies and gets brought back as like a human cyborg to go out there and police. And it's really kind of not necessarily actually my favorite movie. It's kind of makes me a little uncomfortable in a lot of ways, but it's pretty universally beloved by the fandom, and I do understand why. So I do recommend RoboCop. Moving into number 34, we've got Joel Schumacher's The Lost Boys. And, for those of you who hate him for Batman and Robin, I understand, but he's made some other great movies, like Tigerland was one with Colin Farrell. It's a great movie. And this movie's another one, The Lost Boys. Stylistically super cool. Everybody's just beautiful. He's really... Talk about handsome vampires. They are, but they're also scary when the time comes and when they need to be. And Kiefer Sutherland, who plays the lead of the Lost Boys, he's just nice and dark and cool. You might know him from the 24 franchise. Kiefer Sutherland is a star. He's great. This movie's great, and it features the Frog Brothers, who are nerds to their core. Talk about some geek representation in film done right. I know people like to point to that shitty TV show with all the nerds. It was like Big Bang Theory. Fucking hate that show. It's just like a bunch of assholes pretending to be nerds and a bunch of writers pretending to be nerds, just making them reference nerdy things that they've heard of. Hey, remember nerdy thing that I've heard of? This is how nerds behave. Oh my God. And they're just like, these nerds are just as petty and shitty as your average superficial person. I don't know any nerds who behave like the characters on those shows. Hate that show. The Frog Brothers, on the other hand, I can relate. I can relate to those guys. And also in 1987, our bonus movie from last week was Spaceballs. And Baseballs, such a great one. But I talked about that last week. At 35, we already talked about Beetlejuice in 1988. At number 36, we've got Robert Zemeckis' Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Partially animated movie. I love partially animated movies. I think it's just such a great novel thing. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit is great. Jessica Rabbit is sexy, and Roger is ridiculous, stupid, but still fun because of his interaction with Eddie Valiant, his foil. And really, that's the strength of the movie, is Bob Hoskins as a foil to Roger Rabbit's manic, crazy humor. And the two of them together really just make magic. And just so many great little Easter eggs. If you're a fan of animation, if you're an animation geek like I am, I'm a Looney Tunes geek, and I love old school animation. And I'm not as deep into some of these characters like Betty Boops and things like that as I am the Looney Tunes, but I do love seeing so many of the little references that are here in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And another brilliant performance by Christopher Lloyd, who, if I didn't mention, plays Doc in Back to the Future franchise. This movie just kills, and I don't know if my children have given it the time of day yet. I'm really excited to share this one with them because I think they'll all be super engrossed by it. 37, UHF in 1989. UHF. Man, UHF. Weird Al Yankovic made this movie, and it just really has his sensibilities to a T. It's zany. It's really geeky. If you are a normal person, not a geek, watching this, you might not want to watch it. But if you are a geek and you consider yourself a geek, watch it because it's great. It's really stupid though. In some fashions, it's stupid, but it's really fun. But this is the thing that makes it like geek. It's like there's an acceptance of brilliant, simple ideas having merit, and there's lots of brilliant, simple, silly ideas on display in this film, and it'll keep you chuckling and sometimes busting out with its just ridiculousness all the way through. This is actually one of my brother Shane's favorite movies of all time. Shout out to my brother Shane. Yo, Shane, if you're listening, love you. UHF, 1989. Great one. Number 38, we've got Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, also 1989. And at number 39, we've got Batman, 1989. Number 40, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1990, which we talked about on the previous episode. 41, we've got Terminator 2, 91. At 42, we've got Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country. And just a little bit further down the list, we've got Star Trek First Contact in 96. The Undiscovered Country is the one that I picked to introduce my kids to the original series of Star Trek actors in the films. The Star Trek, the motion picture, the first one's not so great. Some of the Star Trek films are weak, especially compared to the series. So I'm kind of going in just to give everybody a place to start. And if you like these films, there are more. And The Undiscovered Country is kind of a good place to start. If you're feeling like you are up for the franchise, you maybe start with Wrath of Khan, the second one, and you can get to The Undiscovered Country, which I think is 4 or 5. Undiscovered Country is really great because it's just got the simple concept of a prison break going on. It's definitely a good look for Spock and Kirk, the original, the OG, Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner, Star Trek captain and second in command. I mean, it really means something. Everything that I love about Star Trek starts here, even though they're not my favorite. A little closer to my favorite is The Next Generation, which I prefer to this, even though I'm a big Deep Space Nine fan. Next Generation, they did a bunch of movies. Their movies also, some of them are really great. Some of them are kind of First Contact is a good place to start. It basically gives an origin for Star Trek that's very satisfying to the things that had been set up in the various series prior to this, and executes it all really well and brings these television characters to life on the big screen like the movie stars that they are. Those are the two that I recommend, one for the original series and one for The Next Generation, to get people into the Star Trek series from before the more recent stuff. The more recent stuff, if I haven't spoken about before, I didn't mind the movies. I enjoyed the movies. The casting I thought was really great. But the TV series that have come afterwards, I am not a fan. Continuing down and getting towards the bottom of our list here. Now we've got 43, Army of Darkness. 44, we've got Jurassic Park, which we talked about last time. At 45, we've got The Crow in 1994. The Crow is directed by, he directed Dark City, Alex Proyas. And Dark City is also a really great one. That almost made the list. The Crow is a adaptation of James O'Barr's comic book, graphic novel, whatever. I read that series, and The Crow is a lot better than it is. But the basic concept established in The Crow series by O'Barr is really great and novel. And this is a case of elevating material that was not great from an indie comic and turning it into something that's really, really worth your time. And this is Brandon Lee's last role, son of Bruce Lee, his last role, because he got killed tragically shooting this film. This movie is a favorite of mine in the superhero genre and a really great case of adapting something and improving upon the source material, which doesn't happen all the time. At 47, we've got The Fifth Element. Oh, because the last one was Star Trek First Contact. The Fifth Element is just amazing, directed by Luc Besson, starring Bruce Willis and Mia Djokovic. If you've been to a comic convention, you've seen somebody cosplaying as a character from The Fifth Element, usually Lilu, Mia Djokovic's character. This is just science fiction done right. It's great. It's got a mystical bent to it as well. It's really just an entertaining film, beautiful to look at, really fun, and really, pop, just larger than life. And, you kind of just can't take your eyes off of it. And a lot of wonderful practical effects. There's just so many good things to say about The Fifth Element. I really, really highly recommend that one. It's a favorite of my ex-wife, Patty. Shout out to Patty. Number 48, Blade in 1998. Blade is amazing, and Blade 2 I'm including as well. That's technically 2002 we crack, but oh my god, Blade. Stephen Norrington, who went on to destroy the League of Ordinary Gentlemen. I don't know if that was his choice, but there is some weakness in this movie and some of the CG effects and things that happen at the end, but everything else is amazing. This is another fabulous reinvention of a comic book character that was, had a part in the comics, but was not defined as well as he is defined here and elevated here to sort of a Batman level. This movie opened the door for so many superhero film adaptations. You just have to thank the gods for it being made in the first place at a time when things like this weren't necessarily being made. Wesley Snipes is incredible. And then the second film, we get Guillermo del Toro starting to do the stuff that he loves to do. Amazing, amazing horror, grotesqueness, and casting great people. And I love the second one's got Ron Perlman in it in a villain role. The villains in the second one are so fun, so cool. I mean, just in general, all the villains in this franchise. Stephen Dorff's a great villain too. It's just the Blade franchise is great. The third movie is really a bummer, and I don't recommend that one. But 1 and 2 are awesome. Awesome films, and I would recommend them to everyone. Blade 2 in particular is my top 10, is in my top 10. I love Blade 2 for a number of reasons. Okay, we're getting almost done here now. We got our bonus there. We got at number 49, the last one on the list because 50 is Blade 2, is The Iron Giant in 1999, directed by Brad Bird. Brad Bird has since proven himself in many ways. He's director of Ratatouille, Incredibles 2. He directed one of the Mission Impossible films. He is brilliant. Brad Bird, man, give this guy an award. Iron Giant is so moving. There's this wonderful references to Superman. Hogarth, the little child in the animated film, who has the pet robot essentially, he's a Superman fan. He reads comic books and he teaches the robot how to be heroic by teaching him about Superman. And there's this one wonderful moment at the end of the film that brings it all back together and ties it to Superman and makes it just such a pivotal moment. It makes it the film that made me say it ain't so, Superman, when I saw Man of Steel, when Man of Steel breaks Zod's neck at the end of the movie, and the Hogarth in me, the young Superman fan in me, said, no, that's not Superman. Superman doesn't kill. Breaks your heart. And the last thing that I'm going to say is there's a bonus movie. Now that we've introduced you to Star Trek, it's time to introduce you to parody film Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest is so great. I'm so sad that we didn't get a sequel before Alan Rickman passed away, but time for that is over. Alan Rickman's gone now, and what are you going to do? But maybe we still will get a sequel, and maybe it'll be great. The Galaxy Quest basic concept is a spoof on Star Trek and the actors of the crew of Star Trek getting put into a real space situation. All of a sudden it was real, and they're being asked to handle it like it's real because this alien civilization has caught all the reruns of their show and they think it's real. And it is just one of the funniest movies of all time and a geek culture classic. All right, guys, that's it. That's the top 25 geek culture classics of all time. And then, of course, this is with a 20-year gap for it to be considered classic. I am so overtime on this show this week that I'm going to save my letter from Kirby D for next episode. And I'm just going to say, if you have anything to write to me, email me at jesseblaze@jessesnider.com. Forgive me, Kirby, for not having any more time to get to your letter, but I will get to it next week. I love you. I love you for writing. I love you all for listening. You are the coolest geeks alive. And please join me again next time on another fabulous episode of the Coolest Geek Alive. And remember to go to Kickstarter and sign up for my King of Kings Kickstarter, which is going to be going live in just over a week. So please be ready. Go sign up for notifications. King of Kings #1, and support this labor of love, this send up to one of the geek culture classics, Life of Brian from Monty Python. I really hope you guys will support this book. It is a love letter to the fandom and smart geeks like you. Anyway, I love you guys. See you next time. You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider.
Isn't that heavy?
Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
Play that. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Coolest alive. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Stay with your tribe. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Revenge of the Geeks. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Week after weeks. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Laughing with you. It's gonna be freaking awesome. And crying sometimes too. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Spelling it out. It's gonna be freaking awesome. shit. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Living legit. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Food in our mouth. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Get in our mouth. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Tell all your friends. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Call right or text. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Raising the bar. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Straight to the stars. It's gonna be freaking awesome. It's starting soon. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Passing the moon. It's gonna be freaking awesome. On with the show. It's gonna be freaking awesome. Ready, set, go. It's going to be freaking awesome. Freaking awesome. It's going to be freaking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.